get a very common question anytime I talk about any fish food whatsoever, and that is, what's your feeding regime? Well, let's talk about mine and how it's changed over time. Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and today we're going to kind of piggyback off of last week's video. So last week I talked about, just a random prop, but Extremes, food, and more importantly, this stuff inside Extremes line that I don't like, and why that was a good thing. And if you didn't see that video, it'll be up in the corner right now. I think you'll enjoy it because I think it's got some really important information in it. Now, here's the thing. I get comments all the time asking me, what's my feeding regime? Have I tried this food? Have I tried that food? So I'd really like to talk about what I feed now. I made an all my fish foods video, I think it was like 3 years ago now. And, it's changed over time. I've tried new foods. I found stuff I like more. Back then, I had a slightly more limited budget. So there's some certain things I just couldn't do as often as I do now. And also I had a more strict schedule back then in the sense of I had more time every day to do stuff in my fish room, where nowadays, I'm very frequently only getting maybe half an hour a day to work with my fish tops. So I've kind of changed my feeding regime. So let's talk about what I feed, what I don't feed, what I used to feed, all of it. And who knows, we might piggyback now stuff. So really when I started, I used to do a lot of Tetracolor flake. And my favorite for a while as a kind of mix-in was the spirulina flake from Zoom Ed. I still actually like this stuff, but the difference with this and, say, the spirulina from Extreme, it's basically just kind of slightly higher quality, right? You're getting a little higher quality bar than the Zoom Ed stuff. I very frequently would buy this stuff when it was on sale, so I would get 3 of these big containers for something like $6 a container. Is dirt cheap. Now, normally its regular sale price is a little higher than that. I still actually like this food, but I like buying something a little bit higher quality in ingredients nowadays that I can, and so that's why I go with some different stuff. So let's go. I'm going to pick some of the niche stuff that I use, and then we'll go into the staples. And I know this is probably the opposite, but bear with me. I'm just going to huck my props on the floor. Actually, let me talk about one other food I used to use a lot. As well as I've got props and train of thought, right? Because I want to be a little more less bullet pointed. This stuff. Tropical Supervit. Specifically the flake. Now, I've tried all sorts of stuff. The granules. The Tab A, if I could still get them, I would love, because they're basically the same as the Sarah Onip tabs. I have a stockpile that's about a quarter of this container worth left between both the Sarah and this combined, and I'm slowly running out. And it makes me really sad because I love that stuff for the guppies. But I used to really like this food. It was something that for a while a friend of mine, Cascadia Aquatics, was carrying until it went all over Amazon. And then she's like, well, I'm no longer kind of exclusive. There's no reason to sell it because I'm not going to beat Amazon. So I'll get this other higher quality food. And I was like, okay. So I bought a lot of this stuff, and I've gone through all of it, and now it's really hard to find, actually, at any reasonable price. You used to be able to get a container like this for about $10. Every once in a while, I go on sale for $7. And, there's even a slightly bigger container for the granules and stuff you could buy. I liked this food quite a lot, but kind of similar to, I went away from Tetracolor, I know, but, Lucas Bretz loves the granules. I like flake. We know that. I'm a flake guy. I went away from that to this because it was a little bit better food. It's made in Poland, if I remember correctly. Made in Poland. So, it's a little bit nicer quality, a little bit better process. But it stopped being easily available. And that also came around the same time that I started testing out a lot of different foods. And they're just better. I get better responses from my fish. I've seen overall better health in my fish, better size, better growth, better color. The list goes on, right? So basically, this got pushed aside for a food that, from what I can tell by my fish, is just better quality and better nutrition for them. Throw it away. Let's go to the niche stuff now, all right? Got this, and I got this. I got this bad boy, yeah. So, I, for my plecos, love Repashy. So, get Soylent Green. Right? And then I mix in, while I had the last of it, some Bottom Scratcher, and then I like mixing in Spawn and Grow in small amounts. So, like, if I'm doing, say, a cup of water, right? Usually I do this kind of all by eyeball, but then I would put in like a tablespoon of the Spawn and Grow. And for what Bottom Scratcher I have left, I'd put in like a teaspoon of this. Not a lot. Very, very small amounts. So I'm mixing these in as kind of supplements, and most of it is the Soylent Green, because I have mostly just ancistrus plecos, and they love them as some algae, right? So this is just a good staple. I would feed this. I'm actually out of Soylent Green right now. I need to go get more, but I do have a bunch of Spawn and Grow. I would make this about once every other week, and I would make it in a small plastic container. A little small plastic container about yay big, a little square, and I'd try to make it about an inch or so thick. And then I would just chop it up into cubes and feed that to my plecos. And usually that would get me across all of my plecos nowadays that I have in all my different tanks. That would feed out for about 3 feedings. It can go more if I cut it thinner, but basically I like about inch cubes. I chuck it in there, they just nom on it. The Cories will get at it in this tank because the Cories like it, and even the Rainbows will pick at it a little bit. If I put it in with the Guppies just go hog wild for it because they'll eat anything. They're not picky at all. They just like food, and there's an army of those guys, so they go after that stuff. What do we got for other niche foods? Oh yes, this fantastic. Bacteria AE. I actually do still use this every once in a while in pleco tanks where I know I'm getting babies every once in a while, or I have younger plecos. I'll try and seed a little bit of biofilm to make sure that they have stuff. Or every once in a while, I'll put a small amount in some of my tanks where I know I have a bunch of autosynclus just to give them kind of some fresh kickstarting biofilm, so they've got a little extra beyond what they normally get inside the tank. This is why it's kind of niche. I bought this originally as a shrimp supplement, and we all know how great I am at keeping shrimp. So I ended up using this for other purposes, but, you know, it still has its place, and it's very, very useful. Problem is I probably will never go through all this amount with how little I need to use it nowadays. Oh yeah, next. Okay. Let's get into the stuff I use a little more regularly. One that I reviewed recently, I have to like reach for it. Around the stuff I use more frequently are these PE flakes from Piscine Energetics. Try to make the label more obvious there. This is a mysis shrimp based flake. It's really, really high quality. It's made up in Canada. I couldn't remember if they'd tell me the raw percentage, but it's pretty high. It's a mysis shrimp based flake. I really like it. I'm almost out. I got this from Jason over at Redfish Bluefish, which you can kind of see in there. Or not. There you go. A little bit better. I got to angle up my light properly so it shows itself. But I use this stuff a little infrequently because I'm running out. When I was testing it, I used it every day on a couple of tanks. And then I would purposely have other tanks where I would use like my Extreme or something else for a couple days and then feed this to see if they would still go for it as readily as they do the stuff they're used to every day. And the short answer is rainbows aren't very picky. They're only a little picky, and that comes to the size of the food, right? Because they have small throats but big mouths, so they can choke on stuff. So they tend to like really go after flake. I powder my food up quite a bit, and they just go wild, going all over the place for it. I do like this stuff quite a lot, but they don't go after it quite as like ludicrously effective as they do some of the other stuff I feed more regularly. So let's get to those, right? Let's get to the stuff I do more often. This is stuff that I love, and then there's 2 versions of it I technically need to test still. I've just been kind of busy. Bug Bites Flake, the tropical formula. Ooh. Right? I like this stuff a lot. It gets its black soldier fly larva. It gets a pretty good response from my fish. Again, rainbows aren't super picky, although I will say this, now that I've got tanks where I fed them krill pretty reliably, they don't like this as much. It doesn't stink quite as nicely, apparently. But these are like the last containers I have left. Fluval actually sent me these in a little care package. They sent a bunch of care packages out to a bunch of random fish tubers. It was just to like, thank you for putting out content about fish. Totally not a sponsored thing at all. I guess technically these three are sponsored. I don't know. I hate those regulations. It's not sponsored, but they sent me this stuff. I've tried the color enhancing, not the flake, but the granule before, and certain fish loved it. Other fish didn't. Smaller rainbows like just ignored it. Some of the big boys would go after it if I kind of ground it up some. And then same with the spirulina. They've got their own spirulina flake. I'd be curious to see side by side how this stuff, and that's what I'm going to do, is test a little side-by-side with extremes, just to see how they react between the two. So, like, if I alternate each day with my the same fish tank, which one do they go after more aggressively, or is there any difference whatsoever? But yeah, technically have to test these two. I tried them in their granule form, and again, if the granules weren't fine enough, they just got ignored by my rainbows because they're such spoiled babies. But the flakes, I like the flake a lot. Set my props down. I know, this is like not professional at all. What do you want from me? Oh, man. Okay, let's go to the stuff I use basically all the time, right? There's kind of three. It depends. Really what I do is I left my big container, my tin, if you will, because I know people like love to dog on me for calling these things tins, but that goes back to when I was a kid when it comes to like baseball and stuff like that. Is the Community Crave mix, which is their spirulina and krill, right? These two guys. And there's a comment in the last video who's like, of course he only uses that food that's provided to him. I buy this stuff. Yes, Extreme has sent me some food to test in the past. I've tried almost their whole product line, except for like Monster, because there's nothing in my fish room that's even going to touch the Monster food. And some of the stuff that's designed more for marine, but I've tried basically everything. I've tried powdering it up and all kinds of stuff, because Extreme is really cool. It actually freaked them out with last week's video, because the title, they were a little worried that, like, did we piss Belly off somehow? Like, no. I thought the title was catchy that way, right? But whatever, I guess it's clickbait, right? Clickbait. But I buy a lot of this stuff because I love it. And after having tried the Community Crave, which is basically just 50-50 this stuff, I make my own. The real difference is I do about 2/3 of the krill to about 1/3 of the spirulina when I'm mixing my own. But every once in a while I'll just buy a thing of Community Crave if I want to be lazy and I don't want to mix it in my big container that I have in the other room. This stuff I feed... Okay, this is where it's going to get weird. 2 days, fast. 2 days, fast. Frozen food. That is during winter. During the summer, 3 days, fast. 3 days, or 2 days, frozen food. Confusing, right? So I fast my fish 1 day a week on purpose, and that's just to help them process stuff, not get too plugged up with too much processed foods and stuff like that. It gives them a little bit of rest. Also, it encourages natural hunger, so they're more likely to try random foods I feed them, like the PE flake or bug bites or that weird brine shrimp flake thing that I showed you guys a while back that I have and is very strange. Stuff like that, right? Now, on top of that, that's for mostly the rainbows and the guppies. Cories and plecos get these bottom wafers pretty steadily on top of whatever flake they get to. So I'll typically feed this stuff every other day. Sometimes every day, it depends. For a pleco-only tank, I will feed this a couple of days in a row, and then I will do like green beans or zucchini or some kind of fresh vegetable, or canned in the case of green beans, right? Because that's the cheap way to get them. But some kind of green vegetable to just mix it up, give them something fresh. It's super nutritious that way. When zucchini's in season, I've got friends that are growing zucchini. I get these big monstrous things that look like they should be a squash and not a zucchini. Like they look like a massive gourd. And I just chop them up, blanch them, freeze them, and then feed them throughout months, basically. It depends on how much I'm giving by my friends. Or sometimes I can buy, there's this little pack. I go to Costco a lot for a lot of stuff, and they have this pack that's in certain seasons where it's small miniature zucchinis and yellow squash mixed, and those are like fantastic. You just chop them in half, and you blanch them helps a lot, but you don't necessarily have to if you clean them well or you just skin them. But I prefer to blanch them and freeze them if I'm going to do a big batch at once, and then I feed them throughout. I just put them on a skewer, a metal skewer that holds them down. It's stainless steel. Easy peasy, right? So I mix these, right? And similarly, once a week, I feed frozen. And I'm missing one of the frozens I like to use, but so I have the San Francisco Bay Brands Cyclops. I love this stuff. It's a really small food, but it's fantastic, right? It's just really, really, really good. And it teaches some of those instincts a little bit. When I can, live baby brine, but if I can't, like lately I've been working too much to actually keep up with my live baby brine. Frozen baby brine, the Hikari stuff. I love the Hikari BioPure. I also use the frozen Daphnia. I don't have an empty package. I did a bunch of cleaning. These are like the only two that I fed recently that I had packages for. So I don't have my Daphnia one to show you, but it's the green package. This is for frozen Daphnia. I buy mostly the Daphnia. I buy the baby brine mostly for the guppy mansion, right? And then Cyclops goes to everybody because it's small enough that baby guppies and rainbows, once they hit about a month and a half, can eat it. But if I'm doing baby rainbows, I'm doing live baby brine at that point. So as would be obvious, if I don't have time to do live baby brine, I'm not breeding rainbows. Goes hand in hand, right? And then Daphnia is just a really good all-around food. A lot of your baby guppies can eat it. It's not necessarily great for the smallest newborns, but all the rainbows just love it. They eat the heck out of it. And yes, if I could properly culture live stuff, I would do live, and it would be way better. I know somebody would be like, "You're feeding all this processed food. Oh, God, it's so terrible." Yeah, man, I work like 60 plus hours a week. I don't have time to keep food cultures, too. And then, like, the last food that I feed, and I kind of mix this in. It depends on whether I have it or not. I don't buy it as often because I love flake, and I'm such a flake snob. But I do really love the nano pellet from Extreme. Granule sizes this small are fantastic. If I could get, frankly, a lot of different foods this fine a granule, then I would use more granule foods. But most of the time you're talking like 0.5 millimeter or like 1 millimeter pellet type stuff. And that ends up being something that a lot of my baby fish in the Guppy Mansion can't really eat, or that my really spoiled rainbows will just kind of ignore half the time. Maybe the biggest ones will go after it, but the shyer rainbows, the less dominant rainbows, will ignore it and just not even go for it at all. And then I feel bad because I'm not feeding my rainbows, and that's just a terrible feeling. Whereas this stuff, this size, they eat it like crazy. Plus it's, if I remember right, it's basically the same formula as the krill. I think it's slightly different, but still good food. I like it a lot. I don't think I'm missing anything. I'm trying to think. I gotta think. Oh, Sarah Oniptas, man. If I could still get those in the original formula, which I don't know if they've come back to that yet or not, but I miss that so much. So I'm going to talk very briefly on a couple foods I used to feed that I don't even have my containers for anymore. So Sarah Vipan I used to use, and man, it's supposed to be really high quality, like less non-organic food sources or whatever. Like 25% of my fish would eat it. Everybody else ignored it. So I don't feed that anymore. It's kind of similar with a lot of foods I've tried. Like there's that brine shrimp stuff that's over there. It just, so many fish don't touch it. and it's, that in that case, it's an expensive food. So this is a Cerevisipan. There's some of the extreme stuff that I've tried that they don't really dig. The newer ONIP tabs, none of my fish would touch them at all. So, they did something wrong there. Every once in a while, I'll go get, like, live black worms. But more and more, I've been steering away from that just because there's, I've seen enough horror stories from people I really trust that I just kind of decide no. The only other thing I do is I do culture vinegar eels because they're so brain dead easy to do. I've got a tutorial video on how to make them. That'll be up there. But I'm not using them really that much right now. I'm just keeping my cultures going so that whenever I get back to breeding rainbows, I have active live cultures. Just because vinegar eels for me are the easiest food to keep around and feed like freshly hatched rainbows for that super, super small nano size. I'd rather get into green water personally, and I'll probably do that whenever I can do my big fish room. But yeah, that's my feeding regime. So it's a mixture of stuff. And just, again, let me go over stuff like, so I use 3 extreme, the krill, the spirulina, and the bottom wafers the most. I buy all that stuff, by the way. I'm not sponsored by anybody. They send me an occasional thing of like, try this and give us feedback. Like, I got an email from Extreme recently of like, hey, we got this new thing we're probably going to send you in some number of months. We're trying to get it done. And it was basically like, tell us what you think about X, Y, and Z. And there are things that I've previously complained about previous foods that are even out there, like the Nice, for example, that just the granule size is too big and my rainbows just freaking ignore it. So it was like, give us some feedback like that and any other thing you want to talk about. They're super cool about that, which is part of why I love supporting them by buying their food. They're really open. They like making the best product they can based on feedback. They run a cichlid farm, so that's probably why they use a lot of pellets at first, but they make some great flake too. And then I like the Fluval bug bite stuff. I have a ton of Extreme. I bought a bunch a while back when I think I had some like coupon I had a gift certificate from my club. And I bought a bunch of Extreme because I knew I was going to use it. I couldn't think of anything else to buy at the time when I was up at the co-op. And because I had a gift certificate from the co-op. It's for my plant program. But anyway. I'm so off track. So I bought a bunch. And now that I've got a bunch, I haven't opened the last few things of like Fluval that I have. And I've tried the Piscean Energetics. I like that. I'll be mixing it in every once in a while. I basically need to buy a new container from my buddy Jason at Redfish Bluefish. I buy Extreme through the co-op just because they're local. They have it. It's easy. You can buy it all over the place. It's on Amazon, blah, 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 blah. I use Repashy like every other week for my plecos. Right now I'm out, so I gotta go buy more. And then I mix in like frozen food once a week, sometimes more. Depends on if it's in the summer. I'll actually use it a little bit more frequently, just because that's prime growth season and they're a little more active and you can get a little more spawning sometimes. So I'm trying to like encourage that with the frozen food. But yeah. My regime is pretty simple. I fast twice a week in the winter, once a week in the summer. So when the metabolism's higher, I don't fast as often. When the metabolism comes down a little bit because temperatures naturally fall, a lot of my fish are on more room-controlled temperature, and there's a little bit of fluctuation just because of how my house is. I fast a little more often to make it a little healthier for them. I mix in either fresh or frozen, depending on what it is. So greens for the plecos and frozen tasties for the rainbows and guppies, and the angels especially. Man, the angels, they go nuts when they get frozen food. It's kind of fun to watch them just darting around getting them and stuff. But and then that's it. I mix my processed stuff with my nicer, higher quality stuff. There's tons of food I've tried over time. I know I'm forgetting stuff. You could probably go back to that old video and see like the 8 billion foods that I had in my arms and tried and liked. But over time, things have changed. As I found foods that I get better response or I see just better improvement in my fish, I shift to those products. It's just a matter of seeing results and sticking to them. And in the case of a few other things, like Fluval has been really cool about their lights, and hopefully they're just as cool about their food. If I ever got to a point of where I was like, hey, I have this feedback about your food. I don't know that they would trust just me, but you know, it's not quite the same as like say Extreme, where Extreme just like takes feedback from a bunch of different people. I just happen to have a pretty good relationship with them when it comes to just like, hey, here is my feedback. Cool. Talk to you in a while. I'm gonna go buy more of your food. It's like, I'm a sucker for punishment. Anyway, that's it. This has been a little weird, a little off the wire. I know. But I really wanted to cover what I feed, and just it's changed over time. I like certain stuff. I think if you're on more of a budget, there's certainly not a problem with getting things like Tetracolor, Flake, or granules. Right? It's still a fine food. It's just not quite as nice as some of the other options that are out there. But if you're on a budget or there's a super great sale, it's not bad. It's okay. A lot of food is really reasonable quality these days. You know, there's lots of people who are like New Life Spectrum or Omega 1 or Northfin or there's lots of great options out there. Use the food that you see the best behavior, health, and color out of your fish. That's really what this comes down to. Regardless of what I feed. There are going to be people who love Extreme and don't like Extreme. There are people who love bug bites and don't like bug bites. There are people who hate Repashy or love Repashy and feed only Repashy. Whatever it may be. Maybe you're that person who I only feed live food. I'm that guy. I'm envious of you. I wish I could be that guy. But I'm not, so that's why I feed that stuff and mix in some of the other things. Do what works best for you, regardless of what any person, myself, or any other fish tuber out there, whether it's the biggest of the big, you know, someone like KG Tropicals, Corey, that one guy up in Nova Scotia? Not where he's at? I can't remember. The guys in Green Aqua, whatever it may be. Just because they say it's the most amazing thing in the world, if you have something that works really well for your fish and you see great health, don't fix what ain't broke. Stick to what you got. But if you see room for improvement, maybe try something different. Maybe try some of the stuff I use. Maybe try something else that someone else suggested to you. Give it a try. Buy a small container. Try it out. See what your own results are. Find what works best for you. Don't be afraid to try things. I'm always trying something new. I've got some other stuff I need to try in the near future. And I'll probably be making a video telling you whether I like it or not. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I know it's been long. I know. And I got a Begatron right at the tail end. Maybe even share it with some of your friends. I don't know. Maybe you just want to laugh at like my terrible feeding regime and share it to some friend of yours who grows only live food, right? You know that one guy or gal. Hit me up in the comments. Tell me, what do you like to feed? What's your favorite food? Is there only one food? Are you Lucas Bretts? It's only Tetracolor granules. Do you use like 800 different foods? Are you like me of the past where I tried like 40 different things at once and I had this like arm full of stuff going on? Do you need your own personal cart to wheel in? Let me know. I'm super interested to hear what you guys have to say. As always, thank you so much for watching. And stay awesome.